Hi creative friends, it's Elizabeth Sampson, the Doodle Nurse, and this week we are creating watercolor flower doodles, and with it we are using our Moleskin Art Collection watercolor album. I got this a while back, but I decided to use it for the upcoming tutorials that I will be giving. And today's tutorial will be on watercolor flower doodles. And this time we're going to be using real watercolors, not the watercolor pencils. But whatever you have, if you want to use the watercolor pencils, by all means stick around. The items will be in the description box below that I am using. This paper in this album is 200 gram and it's 135 pound. So let's get our ambiance started with our candle and let's get started. So as I mentioned, we are using watercolors, and I am using this brand new set of Koi watercolors I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. So I'm really excited to use this today. We have 4 metallics, 12 pearlescents, and 8 fluorescent colors. And here is my color swatch I did for all the colors that are in this pan set, and I just love how they shimmer. So today I'm going to use regular watercolor paintbrushes, or just regular paintbrushes. Small round is what I'm using. And I'm just going to load up with some water, and I'm going to wet my paper. Now you can do whatever technique you want to use, but I'm going to be doing a wet on wet technique. So what I'm going to do here is just put water onto my paper, kind of like in a circle shape. Not really, I mean it can be whatever shape you want to do, whatever shape you want your flower to be. And I'm just loading up the paper with water. I'm going to take a little smaller round and I'm going to dip into my color. The first color I'm going to use here is a pink, and I'm just going to dab into the water that I already have set down, and you'll watch it bleed up through the water that's on the paper. And I don't have a direction I want this to go. This is all pretty intuitive. I'm going to let the paint do its trick with the water. So the first color, as I said, is this pretty pearl pink. And as you can see, I'm just dabbing it on where the water is on my paper. There's no right and there's no wrong to this. You just don't want to mix your colors too much, or you'll have something that looks muddy looking. Now on the second flower, I'm going to do the same technique on all 4 of these flowers that I'm creating. So you're just going to want to put water down on your paper, and you want to dip into your paint, and you're going to want to just let it bleed through the water on your paper. So this color I am using is a pearl red. Really, really pretty. I'm sorry about the camera. You can see there's like there's a glare from my light that's shining on it. It is wet, but with the pearls I just didn't realize that it was going to show up this way. And there was no way for me to fix it now, but you'll be able to see what I create here. So we go off to the third flower, and this one I am going to use the pearl orange. I just love these colors. They're really, really shimmery and pretty. And as you can see, it's making its own shape. And I'm going to go with the shapes that it creates and just work the flower from the shapes that the water has the paint bleed through to. So in the beginning, I'm creating the 3 flowers here. I am now doing the same technique to create leaves. On this page, there's so many ways you can create leaves, but this is just practice sketchbook drawing. and we're practicing with the watercolors. This is my first watercolor sketchbook, so this is fun for me to do. And you see I just dab in the paint and it bleeds through to the end of the leaf. So I'll go on and continue that for the next 2 flowers. You'll be able to see. Just dab the water and then just let the paint bleed through. Now, I don't have to use separate paintbrushes for this. I don't know why I did, but I did. You can use one paintbrush. You can also use your filled watercolor paintbrushes like I've used in the previous tutorials. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you have, use. Don't go out and buy anything extra because you don't really need to. Once you do these, you're just going to want to keep doing them and doing them because they're so simple and so easy to create. But you never really know what you're going to end up with when you do the wet on wet technique. It's really cool to see how the greens and just float through, or even the flowers, the shapes they take. You can be precise about the shape that you want to put down with your water and go with that, but this is not what this is about, because this is a doodle. This isn't a refined drawing or watercolor. This is just a doodle. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to this flower because you see it has started to dry, and I'm going to add a little bit of green in for the bottom where the stem attaches. Now you can see on the second flower the green just bled all the way up through, but I'm going to make this use this to its full potential. Sometimes people don't like the way this looks because, again, if you have too many colors bleeding into each other wet on wet like that, it does tend to look a little muddy. So I'm going to put a little darker green in the leaves, and you'll see how they bleed through. Now, as I say, watercolor pencils are great for beginners that want to control where the paint goes and what you're doing with it. When you get into the watercolors, sometimes you don't have the control that you want. But this is what I want to happen with these flowers. I want to let it flow on their own. And you'll see why when we get towards the end of this video. So if you're liking this so far, please give it a thumbs up, like, and comment in the comment section. Let me know if you're going to try this, if you have watercolors and you'd like to try this, or if you're going to try it with another medium other than watercolor, which is fine. You can do either way. So as you can see, I just keep adding the green. I like the way it's turning out so far. On the second flower, you can see how the green has bled into the flower, and you can see here I'm just making crazy little stems on the way down. I like the way these little stems turned out, all crooked and crazy, which is fun. You can do exactly what you want to do. Now I think this is looking a little bit bare with just 3 flowers, which is fine, but I want to try another flower. I like to see how the shapes turn out. So we're just going to load up with water, and we're just going to create a different shape flower here and see where this goes from that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the first color I used, the pink, and we're going to put more pink in there and see where this goes. I think they're so pretty. These colors just shimmer. In this flower, you're getting a lot of glare. You can see the water. It's closest to my light source, and you can see the glare, so I do apologize for that. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color in. I think I'm using a little bit of that red in with the pink. It's really pretty, just to see what shape this flower takes. And of course I'm going to go off and do the leaves and the stem as well. I love the way the paint just flows through the water. You do not have the control like you have with acrylics or oils or whatever it is, but something about it lends to exactly what I love in the doodling process. So I do like to say that these are watercolor flower doodles. something that you can't create two of the same. You can do the same technique, but you're never going to get two that look identical. And put a little bit of different color shades through there, and you can see how it bleeds through the water. And next will come the crazy little stem that will come down. And I do like how those turned out. I'm just going to add a little bit more pigment to these other stems that I have down before I move on. So I'm going to start adding a little bit more color to these flowers, introducing new colors to it. See how they section off and create spaces within the flowers so they look like they have more than one petal. That I think is just like the best way to create petals, is not by trying to create them, but just let the water flow and create them for you. So again, I have a lot of glare on this last flower. If anybody has suggestions for me on filming, by all means, throw that down in the comment section for me. And then I'll be able to hopefully create another tutorial that doesn't have so much glare on the end flower here. Maybe it's just changing where my light source is coming from. But you can see I'm just adding a little more pigment to that flower. You can wait until your flower completely dries, add a little water, add a little more pigment, or just go with it wet right from the beginning. But you can let it dry in between. As you can see, this flower is dry and I'm adding a little bit more orange in where the green had bled up through the flower. So it looks a little bit more orange pigment to it, more so than the green that bled through the flower. But I really love the variations in colors that you can get from a lot of pigment to just a little bit of water with a little bit of color. So I'm just going to go back through on some of these flowers and add a little bit more pigment to them, a little bit more of the color of the flower that I used originally. And we'll see how they turn out. So once everything is dry, I'm going to get out that fine line water resistant marker that I have. And now is the time for me to just go over and separate where the colors are and the different petals are and the variations. And by doing this, I'm creating my doodle version of the flower and bringing a little bit of that black pigment to it, which I love so much. So this is going to be a personal preference for you. You can do this, or you can leave this section out if you want. You can put more watercolor in. Whatever you want to do, it's your design, you do whatever. But I'm going to put the fine line black marker in because I love it so much. And you can see how the lines are jagged because that is how the paint ended up. Now I'm going to just fast forward a little bit through this as I continue on with the marker. So if you like this tutorial, give it a thumbs up, comment in the comment section, and by all means subscribe to my channel. Next week will be another set of watercolor doodle flowers. And if you like what you see here, you can check out these two videos right here on watercolor pencils, or you can click the subscribe button right here so you don't have to go back and look for it. And we'll see you next week.